Hello neighbor, I'm Robert Burns and welcome once again to another edition of Sound Off Louisiana. And I have Mr. Billy Broussard here. I'm not going to introduce him formally because everybody has seen him many times before. I'll let you go ahead and take over, Mr. Broussard.
Well, with the legislative session coming up and all the work that the President Trump is doing with Elon Musk with DOGE, I'm really hoping, and I have a lot of faith that Louisiana, including our governor, Jeff Landry. We have some great senators, for one, Senator Miguez, a bunch of other state reps that I've even spoke to that are all on board with President Trump in regards to cleaning up the fraud, waste, and abuse. And I have to say, Elon Musk is a rocket scientist, but I've been down this path in this journey exposing what I call fraud, waste, and abuse right here in Louisiana. And we've had meetings in the past, and it's been some time, but I want to recall some of the videos that we've had in actually the Legislative Auditor's Office with Lynn Browning, which was a Deputy Director of GOSEP at the time.
And we're going to break away in just one moment to see the video that Mr. Broussard is referencing, but I want to emphasize one thing before we break away. And we're going to scan this email, have it available for everybody, but this is an email that substantiates the fact that Lynn Browning was aware of this prior to this meeting that you're about to go see. Lynn Browning, I'm going to read to you the relevant points. I'm going to give you the whole email, but this is what I want to emphasize. She talks about version 1, which is a change order, the equivalent of a change order of $453,027. And she says with regard to that amount of money, that is, quote, to account for additional eligible debris identified during the work. So we want to break away right now and let you go see Lynn Browning on that video. We'll be right back.
Volume, and if you built a system that was completely fraud-proof, you would halt recovery and nobody would be reimbursed and nobody would be paid and projects wouldn't be written because the scrutiny that would have to happen on the ground would be so great. You can't have a completely fraud-proof, program.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're trying to show that we feel that there's some ways that we can fix some of the problems. When the guy hires his brother and he uses him to make eligibility determinations, and he asks him, what have you ever done this before? Never.
And to be fair, though, you brought that forward, and I think that GOSEP listened and turned to our partner and said, look into this, let us know if you see anything, and if you do, then it's our responsibility, then we would then turn that over to FEMA. Our challenge here is that we went through that process and
multiple times. And by your own admission, LLA's the scale. And we're saying the scales are level.
I'm gonna tell you how I feel about the scales. I'm gonna play this. This is one of the projects that.
So your best bet actually is
this is another FEMA project.
No, I'm not. I will tell you, we have, and I think you know this, just to remind you, we have the legislative auditors embedded with us. There's nothing that goes out of our operation that doesn't pass their eyes. Nothing. And there are at times we have this relationship where I may get some pressure and I was like, guys, you're gonna have to kind of hold your nose and get your fingers in your ear and and get ready to do this. But I'll only do that if I feel like at the end of the day we're gonna hang on to it. It might not be perfect, all the eyes down, but it's more important to get it through than to be a bureaucrat about it. And they'll just have to, which isn't often, but they'll just close their eyes, stick their fingers in their ears, and we make sure that there's no fingerprints on it.
That's what Morgan Bozier had to say.
So now, let's see, because now you're trying to
hold on. Who is that? I would like to know. That's Morgan Bozier, the same guy that signed off on this project.
That's Lynn's predecessor.
right. I've taken Mark.
So when you said the scales, I'm telling you that we have some problems with the scales.
I didn't refer to myself as a scale, you did.
And you agree with me?
No, I did not. So now that you've impugned my office, I've got to get a little defensive because what Mark, see, you don't understand the context with what Mark was saying with that. Because when Mark says you got to plug your ears and close your eyes, that's because he's about to override something we wrote. We don't look the other way. Got lots and lots of proof, lots and lots of findings that FEMA knows about, that FEMA doesn't like, that the state doesn't like. Lots of them. But we don't look the other way. We write the finding. We put it out there because that's the mission of this office, to bring light and sunshine. That's what GOSEP pays us for, to make sure that the process doesn't get out of kilter.
What I would ask for is,
what
I would ask for is if Higgins' office, maybe with the support of the representatives, that would ask for an independent investigation to find out, maybe from the Oversight Committee in Washington, to find out what's going on in regards to the monitoring of these projects. Because I truly believe that, and there's evidence to support that, GOSAP's contractors that they contract to administrate, that were monitoring this project, and you can talk to the individuals, the boots on the ground on what happened on this project. I mean, I got a police report right here where they're talking about the logs that were removed as sinkers that are not hurricane debris, that they were, the drainage district in the parish, they went to the parish to see if they can market these sinkers. So I doubt if the sinkers were Hurricane Rita debris that were removed off this project that they were discussing on marketing. So the point is, I believe that maybe the Oversight Committee in Washington can do some sort of investigation to find out how the monitoring is done. Because I can show, and I can have some more meetings just to say with individuals, show them how the monitoring is done and how FEMA is being told that something is being done when it's not actually being done. They're taking individuals' word for it, that they're assuming that people are operating in good faith. But the truth is, you compare that, if they say, this is what we pay for, and you compare it to, I mean, but we have to start somewhere. If not, we just go, hey, look, there could be some fraud here and there. You know what? Just, we'll hold our, close our eyes, put our fingers in our ears, and hold our noses. I mean, bottom line, the sensitivity of the scale, we just unplug the scale. So I would hope that we can really get to the bottom of it, because in this particular project, Dan Kennedy was a FEMA guy. He was an employee, and I talked to the U.S. Attorney General's office, and they said sometimes FEMA's biggest problems is FEMA's employees. And I'm not insulting y'all, and I want you to understand that. But the Dan Kennedy that have a map that he lives off of this bayou, and he was supposedly monitoring and making eligibility determinations on this bayou, and his home and his neighborhood had been flooding for years, I believe is a major conflict of interest. And with the information I have, I think that the checks and balances, they weren't working like they should have. So I'm hoping that maybe we can get to the bottom of why is this type of things happening on projects, and how in the world can a contractor bid on a project to do any work if 1 minute it's eligible, next minute it's not eligible, or 1 minute.
All right, you just saw that video, and I want to emphasize one thing. That entailed Mark DeBosier, the former deputy director of GOSEP, sending this email that we're talking about to Lynn Browning, and it was sent mere hours before a meeting that was conducted with Senator Bills and Kevin Davis. So my point is, Lynn Browning is being briefed by Mark DeBosier, who is the one who would have been responsible for closing out the project, and obviously he felt it was important enough that with this meeting coming up that she be briefed. So she was briefed, and she knew the material that I read to you before we broke away. So I'm gonna let Mr. Broussard take back over now.
Bottom line, you heard how Ms. Lynn Browning felt about the fraud on these projects. That out in the field, the scrutiny, I think the word she used, scrutiny, that it would take to clean up all the fraud, nobody would get any money.
That's what she said.
Well,
it would pretty much grind everything to a halt.
Everything to a halt. But I was like, it's so easy to catch it. It's so easy to fix the problem if you hold the people monitoring these projects accountable. It's sometimes, I mean, any applicant, any drainage district, police jury, they're going to try to get as much money as they possibly can. And the state's going to try to get them as much money as they possibly can. But there's contracts that contractors have with the state, GOSAP, to ensure, like on this PW, it says to ensure that only eligible debris is being removed. So the point is, we always, my attorney at the time, at the very beginning, Jeff Landry, was like, we knew they went get additional money from the
That
state and
proves it.
FEMA,
That
and
proves
he was trying to put his fingers on it from the beginning. Guys, what's the scope of work? What's this money for? But we had an affidavit produced by Ben Playa that misled the court that, oh no, this, and then later came into the court, and explaining to the court that, no, and the judge saying, look, that money has nothing to do with you, Mr. Broussard, but all these people this whole time knew it. They knew it even from the very beginning, but they just kept misleading the court, and my attorney, he's fighting, trying to get his hands on it, and the judge, on a motion of summary judgment, looks at this evidence that's before him that I'm going to say is fabricated, and he makes his ruling based upon this information. So I want to explain to people what it's like when you're out there on these projects and you're cleaning up. Mr. Burns, you told me to get you a dozen of cookies on the way here.
You did.
So I'm traveling
You're
from
supposed to
Oak
give me a
Ridge.
dozen cookies.
Right, so bottom line, I got you a dozen cookies here, as you can see, and if I was the monitoring company, I'd have to produce you these tickets, just to say, when you're providing something, so I got you, they have a dozen cookies, they got 6 in this pack, 6 in this pack. So, and I kept your receipt, just like on these projects, you have the contract, but you have these just to say, work sheets that the monitoring company is gonna put together, which right here says quantity 6 cookies, 6 cookies. And so, Mr. Burns, I did buy me a drink, I was thirsty, but in that 354 and 354, there's evidence here that I got you 12 cookies.
12 cookies,
So
okay.
I need you
I've
to
had a
pay-
little trouble zooming in.
Hopefully you have no questions about the 12 cookies, but there's the tickets, there's the receipt. So I need you to pay me for the cookies. I'm just trying to explain to you how the taxpayers or these projects are being handled with their money.
So it looks like I owe you about $10 for these cookies, correct?
Right.
And we're talking about a dozen cookies. Y'all forgive me for the fact that I'm struggling more than I usually do, but it's a twin pack of 6 cookies, and there's the receipt. So I now owe Mr. Broussard $10. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and
And in good faith, that you, in good faith, you're seeing that there's 12 cookies, correct?
no, Mr. Broussard.
Give me the $10 first.
All right, the $10. I know, Mr. Broussard. I'll put this camera back there. There are not 12 cookies. There are only 4 cookies. There's 2 in each pack.
But
Now wait a minute. I paid for 12 cookies.
the important
You got some explaining to do. Go
The
ahead.
important thing, the government just assumes everyone's operating in good faith, the government themselves and these contracting companies, but bottom line, it says it right here. All you need to worry about, Mr. Burns, is these tickets right here that just say 6 and 6, and you, if you were the taxpayer in a situation like on this project, you just need to pay the bill and just assume everyone's operating in good faith, and you're gonna get 12, there's 12 cookies. Don't ask no questions, they'll tell you no lies. So, I mean, you're gonna accept that there's 12 cookies, period, right?
Well, I'm not happy about it. I'm supposed to get 12 cookies. There ain't but 4 cookies in here.
But yeah, the ticket says, and that's pretty much how, to get to the point, that's pretty much how the legislative auditor is accepting this baloney from these monitoring companies. It's overwhelming, there's red flags, overwhelming evidence the taxpayers are not getting exactly what they pay for. And or a contractor may be providing services that they're not getting paid for. But the thing is people are these monitoring companies, they just have tickets. And you were with me talking to Mr. Pavera himself.
I was absolutely with
And you heard Moorhead speak up. Mr. John Moorhead, if I remember his name.
That's
He's
it.
actually in the previous video representing Legislative Auditor's Office. What did he say? If the FEMA guy, Dan Kennedy, signs off on this, and he said all the work, if you remember right, he said all the work was done at those GPS sites, and the way we know that is Dan Kennedy signed off on it. And I'm telling him, look, I've been on that project, I've never met Dan Kennedy in my life. So the point is someone could just sign off on something and say, yep, that's what you're getting.
And so now I'm FEMA, and so I just had to give you $10.
And or the taxpayer that you're paying for something. It's kind of like what's going on in Ukraine. I mean, we hear the president saying, we gave y'all $300 and something billion. And Zelensky's like, wait a minute, we didn't get 350, how many billions of dollars? We only got, I think, less than 100 billion. So you go, but wait a minute. So apparently the president, Elon Musk, they're gonna look into that. And I'm thinking what's gonna happen is, it's kind of a trump card that the president's going to be able to get not Elon Musk, but Zelensky start talking, going, where's all that money? What did we provide you? And if he comes back with, well, we didn't get all this that y'all said, y'all got this money, it's like, well, who got their hands on that money?
But the final deal is I only had to pay you $10, right?
Right, but well, no. Then there's I had to pick them up and gas money, and I took a nap on the way here at the hotel. So by the time you do all the administrative costs on these projects, there's a lot of money.
You telling me I owe you more than the $10? I only got a third of what you said, and I've already given you the $10. You telling me you're going to bill me for more?
Well, time, miles on my truck. I mean, yeah, I have to take a nap. At least $100.
So you're going to take my $100?
Yeah, I need this $100. That way I can, the administrative and the travel costs and all this other stuff, and we got to make sure, that the taxpayers know that they got what they were paying for. I mean,
well, Mr. Broussard, I have just paid $27.50 for each cookie. I was supposed to get a dozen cookies. I only got 4. It was supposed to be $10. Now it's $110. You're going to sit here and tell me that you're charging me $27.50 per cookie.
That's pretty much what it adds up to when it's said and done, though. On these projects, that's pretty much what happens on a lot of different things that go on with the government. And then we want to get upset when the president starts making cuts. And I'll pray and hope that the governor, I see him in these meetings with the president. He's right at the president's left-hand side. And the governor told me himself, he said, you asked me if they committed fraud? Yes, they committed fraud. That's why I'm running. So I truly believe, I mean, I know you do sound offs at this point now, well, what's going on with the governor here and there? Look, I have a lot of faith in our governor that he's going to get to the bottom of this fraud, waste, and abuse in Louisiana. And I truly believe he's probably advising the president of how this game is being played, because it's not just the contractors doing the work. And it's these monitoring companies and these liaisons and all these people. I mean, you go to the GOSAP office. I mean, I was like, I walked in and I can't believe they have all this. I mean, this facility is just huge. And when you do the job, you might have just as many people monitoring the work as actually doing the work, and they all have to get paid, and you should see the size of their contracts. I mean, tons of money. And it's interesting, I got where there's emails where you have the guy signing the contracts on behalf of the monitor, the big company monitoring or providing administrative assistance to the state, hiring family members, in-laws, that their brothers apparently run the companies to monitor this. This particular project, that's what happened. I looked into it. Both had the same last name. I said, wait a minute. So apparently it looked like brothers, but now it was under the company that was monitoring, the guy that was monitoring the project. He worked for a company a woman owned, so I guess they can put it under a woman-owned company, minority, to get the contract, to funnel money and saying they're spending money with minorities when it's family members. And it seems like a lot of them are all from Arkansas. They all come back with, from the dates back to the Clinton times.
So, but the bottom line is here, we've provided a pretty simple analogy that Mr. Broussard is representing as representative of what happened in the fiasco and what is typical with regard to GOSEP/FEMA. And that is that I wound up having to pay $27.50 for each cookie.
That's what ends up happening. There's so much fraud, waste, and abuse, and when it's said and done, and then think about it, if you had to pay the taxpayers, look at what's going on in Ukraine. If they say, okay, Ukraine, you got to pay back the 300-something billion through this mineral deal, and they go, well, wait a minute, we didn't get 300-something billion.
I can see, yeah.
But see how the taxpayers, just to say, look, I'm all for President Trump doing what he's doing in regards to the things at the federal level and the cleanup. But it doesn't. Elon Musk and his group, they're going in, finding all this fraud, waste, and abuse. But it doesn't even take a rocket scientist. It takes people. Then you see these legislators up in Washington screaming, "No, let us do our job. We can handle this." No, you had your chance and you didn't do it. So they have to get some
Six young men in their early 20s.
Go in there and mop the floor with all the fraudulation abuse.
Yeah.
So the thing is when it's said and done, that's why you say, "What they apparently things haven't been going well with FEMA." Because now they're talking about
complete overhaul. That's
overhaul.
what President Trump's ambitious in. So, well, folks, this was a simplistic analogy, but guess what? We have a second part to this. You will not, trust me, you will not want to miss the second episode of this little brief series that we're having with Billy Broussard. Trust me, you're going to want to see the second episode. We will see you again real soon.